This is the Pete Wong Podcast, sharing the things that I love with those that I love. I've always wanted to talk about the things that I care about in life. People have told me time after time, why don't you just share more of you? And with that, let's go. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's The Pete Wong Podcast. How's everyone doing out there in the world? I have with me a very special guest today. Today I have one of my best friends. I've known this guy for quite a while. I'm going to get into how we knew each other in a little bit here, but I have with me my buddy Josh. Do you go by Josh or Joshua? What would you prefer?
Most people call me Josh.
All right, we're going to go with Josh. All right, Josh Dyrud. And how you doing today?
Doing all right.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a crazy week, but
It's been a crazy week. Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. What's been crazy for you?
Lots of ups and downs. Some things just not panning out. And some, it's been a busy one.
A busy one. Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you. One thing that y'all might not know about Josh is he's normally the guy behind the camera, and so it's really gracious and really awesome of you to want to be so enthusiastic when I talk to you, and you're like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I'm really excited for everyone to be able to meet you and get a glimpse, if not more, of you, because you mean a lot to me, and our friendship is so important. Our brotherhood is so important in my life, and I'm excited to share it with others. So first of all, I wanted to say that it's because of Josh that the podcast even got started. I was having a lot of thoughts, a lot of kind of like, you guess you could say, cold feet. And I just one day coming back to Minnesota, I was hanging out with Josh, and he gave me just a couple things that he said that he was helping somebody with their podcast, and from then on it was like go. And I just anything that Josh is supporting and rooting, I always have full confidence, and so it just made me feel even more confident to pursue this. And so I really got to thank you for that. And we're actually at Josh's studio, so we'll talk.
Welcome.
So yeah, so it's really great to be here. And so the podcast is definitely the beginnings, the origin is because of the catalyst is because of Josh. So thank you for that, and I'm just really grateful for that. So so I'm gonna let Josh start off by sharing about him, and just tell us about who you are and whatever you want to share, and we'll just start there.
Okay. I'm not sure what you want to know, Pete. Let's see. I've known you for, I think, 21 years, maybe 22. We're somewhere around there. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I knew that I know it was like I was in early 20s.
Yeah.
Sorry, we were in our early 20s.
Yeah, we were in our early 20s. Yeah. So, man, I feel like as much as you have just given me the just that catalyst for helping you start this, I feel like you've helped me start many other things in my life. I think I wouldn't really be into video production as much, except for getting to know you and the support that you had and your interest in film at the time when we were just starting out our friendship. So that's been a huge support in kind of just getting me in the door. I think you might have introduced me to Asian Media Access.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
yeah, probably
back in the day.
Yeah,
that was kind of our kind of start into the foray of trying to make movies.
That's right.
Is that what we're trying to do? I don't know if we actually succeeded. Well, we did make at least one together.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe more. I don't even know. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't remember
actually.
either.
Those are old things. I hope nobody sees them. No, no, they were fun. They were fun. It's okay. but yeah, I think that kind of started me down that path. And we met because I was in Chinese class language at the University of Minnesota with your sister,
Mm-hmm.
Janet.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the start. And I actually got to know Janet because we actually were going to the same church.
Right.
And it just kind of all came together where we ended up in the same class. And then I got to know you, and it kind of went from there. And I think we've had quite a journey.
Quite a journey, yeah.
So yeah, we've always, I think, like you said, we're family. You know, we've always been intertwined. Everything that we've done and been interested in from martial arts. I think that was an early comment, shared interest.
Yeah.
Martial arts, film, video related things, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, from there, I kind of really, I ended up getting into sound more than film, just because it's cheaper. Cameras are expensive, at least back then. Now they're way cheaper now,
Right.
but or affordable is probably the better way to say it then. But yeah, you know, I started doing sound, and you introduced me to Two Psych, I think, and then I got involved with his open mic, doing live sound for his open mic, and I was doing live sound for my church as well. But that helped just train and learn how to have an ear for live things. And then now I think one of my main gigs is working as a recordist for video related things. So it's audio for video. It's basically how you describe what a recordist is. And so that's one of my main gigs right now. But yeah, now I have the studio and you know, doing the video thing as well. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Josh brought it up, but one of the things about our friendship is the commonalities. I started thinking about it as I was taking my notes, and it's like we both are martial artists, and we both love martial arts. And if any of you want to know like the ins and outs of Wing Chun, Josh is the guy to contact. You know, in Minnesota. So if you're in Minnesota, you want to learn Wing Chun, contact this guy. So
I'll at least set you in a direction. Hopefully the right direction, but I'll set you in a direction.
They could get started at least.
Sure.
That's where I learned hands-on, you know, Wing Chun, and still have been practicing what you've showed me. The other thing is movies. We love movies. We you know, whatever types of movies. You know, definitely are specific genres that we both gravitate towards more than others. But also comics, and you know, you're a big enthusiast, fan, admirer of comics, and I think you want to talk more about that? Like just
I don't know. I mean, there's so many things to talk about, but yeah, I get. Whenever when I was very young, I was interested in just drawing, illustration drawing.
That's right. Yeah.
And I had an aunt that was actually an illustrator as her job. She did illustrations for books, and that was really. She's really inspiring, I think. It's Josh Dyrud. But you know, so that was kind of cool to see. Oh, somebody can do this. And then somewhere as a young kid, I don't even know how I got my hands on it, but I got my hands on an issue of Spider-Man. Oh. And it was like the cover had been torn off. It was just like the bare pages. But I feel like I read that one issue like cover to cover like so many times. I don't even know. Just because that's the only thing I had. I was probably like 6.
Okay.
Or something, 6 or 7. And
was this an early issue of Spider-Man?
Yeah,
or?
I mean it was.
Okay.
I mean we're talking early 80s. So I mean there was some development obviously, but it was Amazing Spider-Man and you know one of those early iterations. I know there's been several iterations before that because Spider-Man morphed a lot, but almost all those old superheroes have. Yeah. But anyway, you know, and that just kind of you know this sort of interest or love for that genre of art had developed there, and yeah, I have.
Marvel or DC?
Oh boy, it's tough.
That's another
do,
podcast.
it is a whole nother. We're talking. Yeah, it's a whole different podcast. I think there are individual characters in the DC universe that are interesting to me, but I think as a whole, Marvel has really, like I said, I started off with Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and so kind of I've kind of been in that Marvel world for a long time. But I think there's always those individuals that DC really just pulls forward. I remember when I was a kid, so again, growing up in the '80s, so radio was still a thing back then.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I remember going when I would visit my grandparents in northern Minnesota. There wasn't a lot to do. They didn't have a television. At least if they did, I never saw it. And they lived on a farm, so there's lots of outdoor and farm type things. Run around, play on hay bales, and climb trees and do farm stuff. But go find rhubarb plants and eat raw rhubarb. That was fun.
Yum.
But in the early morning, and when we weren't really ready to go outside, or I don't know if it was a weekend or whatever, there would be radio programs. And I remember one of my favorites was the Batman and Robin radio show. Radio drama, I guess they would call it. I don't know. But it was, it's just like stories. Back then, it would be like what podcasts, like the story-based podcasts of a different era, basically. We're in this podcast world right now. But yeah, so I remember, like Batman and Robin, the Dick Grayson Robin particularly, and following him into Nightwing a little bit. And so that's kind of where my DC knowledge starts and ends. It doesn't really end there. I have a little bit more. Lobo is amazing. Of course, he's just a fun character to have.
Who?
Lobo.
Okay.
Lobo. Yeah.
Not familiar with Lobo.
You look up Lobo. He's
listeners. Lobo. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. Don't quote me on this, or if you probably will, because that's what people do. But to me, Lobo is kind of the Deadpool of the DC universe. He's a little bit. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He doesn't break the fourth wall the way, at least not that I know of, that Deadpool does. But it's just that kind of concept. He's just there to do things that nobody else would do. In a comic book.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah,
it's awesome. See, we can get into this, can't we? All right.
Yeah.
So before we get into our topic that Josh and I decided upon, I also want to point out that we also, family. Family is something that I always, right from the beginning, like when we became friends, you just made it so easy to well, I think it's because you would see my family a lot at the church, and you had so much care towards my parents, and I think that it just makes it easy, when people you care about or people you're getting to know have so much love and empathy towards somebody, towards someone so deep to me, my parents, that I was like, oh man, so he basically invited himself into the family, in other words, and and we were more than welcome.
Sure.
And also, and this is getting into our topic, is the fact that you're Asian, and how Asian culture resonated with you in so many ways. Like I remember we'd be eating something and you'd be like so into it, right? And so, like anything, I mean, not to say that you have to be Asian to be into something, but it's just like you're so passionate, you're so into it that we could share that. But as we got older, I think the thing that I always come back to, and I think Tu and other good close friends would also say the same, is that the really amazing thing about Josh is that he's just he's just got such a good heart. Somebody who is very supportive and like if he's not too busy, he would drop everything. And even if he is busy, he sometimes does drop things, and that's what we're working on. But I think I just want to point that out before we get into our topic, because I think that's what makes you so unique and so special, is that you are that friend that, like, it's just you're part of your nature. And the podcast is really trying to share with people, the people that I know, in their nature. And all the work that I do, I'm wanting to push that out there more. How can we be more in our nature? And so I think for you, what I notice is that you're just so reliable. Like, it's just you're someone that, like, wherever I am, wherever you are, we can always call each other.
Yeah.
And then we can talk, and then if we don't have a lot of time, we'll just say, hey, like, we got to keep this brief. Or if we have a lot of time, we'll talk for hours. And it's just, and it's refreshing every time. And I think that is what genuine friendships, and like in the previous podcast with Orpheus, we talked about how do we sustain long-lasting relationships, and it's because we're always honest, and we're always very upfront about everything with each other. And so Josh is just so helpful, so supportive, and I just want to put that out there, that and that's why I'm very grateful and excited to have you here, because people get to see you, and in addition to all the work that goes behind putting together the production, and all the work that you've done to help me record my podcast when I first started, and we'll continue to keep it going, growing, and but I think that's a nice setup for a good time to talk about our topic. Do you want to introduce it, or do you want me to?
Why don't you?
Okay, all right, okay. So Josh and I were talking about what do we want to talk about, and after we talked about it, I was like, I had another idea for a future one, but and I think it'll be a good one too. But we wanted to talk about and this is the interesting thing, we didn't even know what to call it.
Right.
So, but I did some research, and I watched some YouTube videos.
Okay.
No, and I read some articles too, but there's some long articles about this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's safe to say, if it's not, listeners, please let us know. But I think that's why this discussion is so valuable, is because we don't know if it's right or it's wrong or what to call it, but I'm noticing that people are using the word mixed race. So whether you call it multicultural, multiracial, or other terms that I apologize if some of you listeners out there feel offended. That's why we're having this discussion. Yeah. But I just remember that one of the things that stuck out in our friendship in the beginning, when we were I forgot to mention that we were roommates.
All right. That's right. Yeah.
We were roommates. How long did we live together?
It wasn't a super long time. It was a couple of years. A year or 2 years at most.
Yeah, a year. Okay,
yeah.
But between a year and 2 years?
Maybe. Has it?
Maybe 2?
Maybe more. I don't know. Somewhere in that range, 1 to 3.
Okay.
Say that.
Yeah. And I just remember Josh sharing a lot about being mixed race. And I'll let you share more about that. But so today's topic is I just wanted to give the listeners an opportunity to hear from Josh his perspective, what it's like, and then for us to just go from there. I mean, I have some notes here in case I get sidetracked or anything like that. But I think I'd love for you to share. Whatever you'd like to share about that, and specifically your story.
Yeah, it's actually kind of hard to know where to start because, for me, it starts with being in my life, but but it is kind of hard to know where to start because, and I think I'll go back to kind of the terminology thing that you started off talking about. Mixed race is it's probably a common way to describe somebody who has parents who are from different cultures or from different backgrounds. And I think there's been a lot of other terms that people use, especially even to describe specific combinations of cultures, right? And some of those can be derogatory, or have derogatory origins, but have been then reclaimed in a sense in some cases. And to be honest, I have done a lot of research in the past, but some of that is so long ago that everything's foggy. But I have a few thoughts on certain things, and I know there are certain terms that people was okay for a while, and then people realized that's not okay. That happens in multiple actually of the names or terms used for people with mixed origin or mixed.
Mixed origin.
Mixed origin.
I like that.
One of the things for me personally, and I don't have a problem using the term mixed race personally, but as a personal aside, I like to think we're all part of one race, the human race. So when I say mixed, I might just say mixed and leave it at that. I'm mixed.
Yeah.
And just because, there's nothing wrong with saying mixed race. Again, it's not offensive to me, but I like to maintain that sort of worldview that we are all one race. Yeah. And that as humans.
And in fact, I in one of the videos that I researched, they mentioned towards the end there that people always talk about being part or being half.
Yes.
And he's like, well, I would like to put out there that that I would like to be known as full, as full, whether it's full Asian, full white, or whatever race it is, or like you said, human. So it's and I think that's why it's such a I appreciate us talking about this topic, because it's not something that maybe especially right now is like you know what I mean, like top priority on people's right.
Sure.
But look how kind of like, if we weren't best friends, how tricky of a conversation this would be.
Sure.
Because what I just said there, even though I didn't intend to offend you, and even though I didn't mean to say it that way, I was just trying to present it, right?
Yeah.
But I loved it that you corrected and set the tone, because I did want to eventually get to like that, just the term alone, mixed or mixed race, it's kind of isolating. When I hear that, I feel like I've already isolated somebody from just being human. And so, but at the same time, because of your genealogy, it makes you very unique in your perspective. And so could you just share with us what that perspective is? Because I didn't even say anything yet.
No, I know. Yeah. I realized I kind of avoided it as well. No, but...
you avoided it?
No, I didn't. Well, subconsciously maybe. But anyways, no, I think it's interesting because we live in the U.S. and in particular from here, we're currently in Minnesota. Yeah. We're both from Minnesota.
Yep.
So...
Yep.
But being Minnesotan, there's a lot of diversity in Minnesota. But when we were young, particularly, the dominant culture was a white American culture, and so, and in some ways, there's a lot of Scandinavians in Minnesota, people of Scandinavian heritage. There's some German, others, but so it's pretty strong here. We have these terms, like they even make T-shirts with "ufta," right?
Right.
It's very, very Scandinavian. So, so when people ask, growing up, it's complicated because people always want to know what makes me different, or what's different about you than me. right? Where are we? Where do we? What's the differing parts of us? And so I usually lead with my mom is Vietnamese, and my dad is of Norwegian ancestry. Um, I don't know. I always get confused because my grandparents have different. Oh man, terminologies are all messing me up. Being on camera too, and then being live, like, oh wait, I can't think of that word right now. No, but they have different generations of living in the U.S. in America and the U.S. So I think like my grandpa might be. I'm making this up, people.
Yeah.
So my relatives, anybody who's listening, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just saying something like.
He's on the spot, people.
I know. Something like, maybe my grandpa was like third generation and my grandma was second, or the other way around, or something like that, right? As far as coming from Norway, and their families. And so that's kind of how I say it. But my mom moved here from Vietnam. She's first generation from Vietnam. So,
something like, or
yeah, no, I don't think you can kind of something like that one. But so that's kind of how that works. So usually I lead with my mom is Vietnamese because that's what people really want to hear. They want to know what's different. If the dominant culture is this, this white or Scandinavian culture, and then. Can you guess? Maybe I'm putting you on the spot. Can you guess what the response is? Almost, I would say 95% of the time I get the same response.
Oh, no, you're not.
No,
or
not that. They don't challenge it. But, but it is similar. It's along those lines.
I'm like trying to think like.
I know I'm putting him on the spot. Pete's been putting me on the spot all afternoon. So
yeah, I
got to give it back a little bit.
You're joking. No, they're not.
No. It's kind of like that, but it's a little different.
Okay,
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
They always say, "Oh, that's so unique."
Oh, wow.
Almost like 95%. That's so unique or different or original or whatever. But unique is the most common word that I hear. And for me, yeah. I don't know how to respond to that because I'm just me. I'm glad to be unique. We all want to be unique in different ways as humans. I feel like I don't think we want to just be. I don't know. There might be some people, but it's a very small percentage that truly, deep in their heart of hearts, wants to just be a cog in the machine and not known with no name. Right? Yeah. We've kind of there's so many things. In media, in stories that kind of relate to the concept of we all want to have our own name. We want to have our own voice. And so that concept of being unique is not necessarily bad, but when you're trying to fit in in a world, sometimes that's not super easy. And that's not what you want to hear. You want to fit in. Saying I'm unique means, well, you don't fit in anywhere and we don't want you. Go find somebody else to hang out with, right? So that's kind of what you feel. Like you don't fit into my group. Right. So that's interesting. It's kind of most of the time as a young person. Now I've grown older and I've matured and I've kind of found my own identity in a way. So things now are very different than when I was just developing, a 5 or 6 year old just developing, trying to find his place in the world, saying, people saying that, oh, you don't really fit in anywhere, right? You'll never fit in anywhere because you're unique. You're the only one, And so it's been a challenge, I think, trying to find people that understand, being left out. I think what you talked about is, this concept of being drawn to Asian cultural things, particularly like your family and the Chinese things that we did together.
Yeah.
The Chinese New Year's, those other, all the things. Your mom giving red envelopes and stuff. It's and I like I said earlier, I was actually taking Chinese language when I was in college, um, just because I wanted to kind of understand more about things that I didn't have a grasp on, and these were ways to kind of put myself closer to people that also might feel a little bit like a little bit like outsiders in this, white dominant culture in
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota. Um, and so yeah, if I couldn't fit in with white people,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom, I never learned Vietnamese growing up. That was a thing. I don't know if it's something we'll get into in this podcast, but for whatever reason, her own reasons, I didn't. She she didn't
Mm-hmm.
teach us Vietnamese, and me and my siblings. I've two. I'm the middle of three siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So none of us really got to learn Vietnamese, at least not from our mom. And so uh, that kind of put a barrier to getting closer to even my Vietnamese relatives. That a lot of them, their first language was Vietnamese,
Vietnamese. Oh.
and English was a second language. Um, and so it put a little barrier to getting to know them, and so then feeling like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't accepted by my own family, and then being accepted, I'll say, by say my cousins on my dad's side of the family. I don't ever feel like they never purposely or anything willingly, tried to push me out or anything like that. But when I grow up with, using chopsticks
Mm-hmm.
and, liking kung fu movies and having these interests that, have like Asian cultural heritage, Asian cultural backgrounds, um, then suddenly I know in the back of my
Mm-hmm.
head that, okay, these people, they accept me, but I don't actually fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't actually understand what I go through when I go home, Or when I say go home, I probably mean going to school the next day or whatever, right?
Yeah.
When I go home and go to school, because I think we always visited. We went to northern Minnesota, which was away, and then we'd go home away from those family members,
Mm.
and then I would be back into my area of, well, I don't really fit in anywhere. And so yeah, so being drawn to the more whether it's Vietnamese or just Asian in general,
Mm-hmm.
um, things, it kind of put me in a position where I could get to know people that also felt at least a little bit on the outside from this
Oh.
white dominant culture. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of trailing off.
No.
I'm kind of at a place where we can.
Mm. Yeah.
There's a transition point here, but also we could go deeper. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go back to taking the reins and lead me back to
Sure.
where you want this podcast to go.
No, it's going exactly how it needs to go. No, thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I think as I was going, coming up with my notes, it was like it was challenging to figure out um how do like in what direction do we take this topic,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, you're older now, and you're seeing things much differently,
Sure.
and which I definitely do want to get to as well. But you brought up some very key points, not feeling accepted, and then what outlets you had to go to find acceptance. And so I just think that as adults, it's valuable to just to be able to say that,
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to, like, I mean, I think what you just shared there was very important, and and even gives me perspective on the topic that we wanted to
Right.
but but when you were learning the Chinese language,
Mm-hmm.
that was not until like college,
Right.
right?
Right.
So what was it, just because that was what was available, or what made you choose the Chinese language? Because that's like, That's not like,
And it was
a
Mandarin.
walk in the park,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right. And just for a distinctive, I know that people will say, well, what, we're talking about Mandarin. It was a Mandarin class. Yep.
Mandarin, all
Yep.
right.
Your family speaks Cantonese.
Yeah.
So when I was in class with your sister, she was learning Mandarin.
Were you guys did you guys know each other at church, or you knew class first? Or same time?
That's a great question. I think technically class first.
Wow, look at that.
I think. And it just turned out that we ended up, it wasn't out of planning that we ended up,
The universe.
we found the same church family too.
Yeah.
So,
wow, that's amazing.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. We're led together.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, and obviously it brought you and I together, Pete, and so that's been great. But I almost forgot the question. We were talking about Chinese language.
Yeah.
So,
Because that's a lot of time from when you were young
yeah.
to college. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
So yeah, this actually, there's a lot of perspective to be had because everybody's path, and I'm sharing my path as somebody who's mixed. And again, it's annoying to say this, but it is unique because everybody that I talk to who has a similar, whether they're mixed with, two distinct cultures or more, everybody takes it differently, and the family that they're raised in raises them differently,
Right.
and they find identity in different ways. And I think in my family, we didn't have, there's no direction to find identity, right? Me and my siblings had to just find it ourselves. And so I can't speak exactly to how my brother and sister found their path, but my observation from my end of it, not having a conversation with them, I still haven't. Maybe this podcast will lead me to. But
Awesome. Wow.
like my sister is older than me, so the best I can do is follow the path that she led. And as far as I could tell, she just sort of, there's a term for people, it's called passing, right? If you pass for white, it's passing. So people won't ask you, oh, where are you from? Or what, what's your heritage? People never ask that correctly. But anyway, like where, it's usually where are you from? Like, I'm from Minnesota, born in
Yeah.
St. Paul, yeah, that's where I'm from. And I stop there and let them just try to figure out what's my next question then? Yeah, because I didn't answer what they were really asking. But yeah, if you don't get asked, where are you from or why are you different than me, then you can pass, right? You're passing. So you just pass into again, let's say predominantly white culture. And, and I think it's not that any of us don't have distinctive features, but I think she just took advantage of just the ability to pass. And as far as I know, didn't go any deeper, at least as a kid, as a adolescent trying to find identity, and things seemed quote unquote easy. Now, as siblings, we didn't discuss it, right? It wasn't a thing we talked about at home, so maybe it really wasn't easy for her. And it just looked like it from the outside as a younger brother trying to find his own way a couple years behind her, so saying that, which is my perspective, right? So, given that I didn't have a lot of direction, I just had to figure things out. And the problem, and you say the word problem, but it's just a reality, is I ended up going to private school for most of my early years. In all of that time, there was one mixed kid. His mom was white, his dad was black. Actually, technically 3 because they were siblings, but one that was closest to my age in that school. And then one other black student that she was a special needs student. However many years of my developmental years, it was all white kids and just a handful of people of color and no Asian people in that school at all, besides us. So, so that really stunted my path in a sense of finding a place to feel. So everything that I had was media, right? I only could find find faces that looked Asian. They didn't even look like me because I don't know how I would look. It's hard to kind of describe that. But that had Asian features was only through media, right? And I think like Dustin Nguyen,
Oh,
you know,
21
at
Jump
21
Street.
Jump Street, that was my favorite
Right.
show because there was an actual Asian actor playing not a Chinese person. Like he was playing
Who he is.
He wasn't
Yeah.
specifically Vietnamese in that show, but they never said they never referred to him as well.
I think
They may have.
because they go back, they show Vietnam.
Ah, so they did. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, it's been so long.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I got to go back and actually watch those reruns. But but you know, and so that's the first time. It's not just a Vietnamese actor playing a Chinese part,
Right.
right? And I was like, so that was my favorite show. And people were like, oh, you know, what's his? Who's the
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp
Yeah.
is the face that everybody remembers. I did not think of Johnny Depp as the main character. I did not see it that way. To me, it was Dustin, right? And so
Shout outs to Dustin Nguyen. All right. Okay.
yes,
Still acting. Okay.
changed my life.
Yeah.
Or well, influenced my life. And so that's all I had were these glimpses of, you know, your token Asian character on a TV show, or again going to martial arts movies, the Hong Kong martial arts movies, and stuff like that to find my representation. And again, those terrible representation because they still didn't represent me.
Right.
They represented something very different. And so, going back to the language thing, my mom's family, my family, speaks Northern dialect Vietnamese.
Okay.
If you try to find a tape, at least when I was young, let's say in the 80s, if you tried to find, you know, tapes, language learning tapes, which was an interest of mine, like, well, I want to learn Vietnamese somehow. I got to, I find the tapes and it's all Southern dialect because of the war. That was, and so there's no way to find nobody wants to learn Northern dialect, you know, unless you're a communist, you know, of course, using those terms from those days. And so I couldn't, there was no tapes that would teach Northern dialect. And I didn't want to go to my family and talk funny, you know, with an accent. So I was like, well, I just won't learn Vietnamese unless I can learn Northern dialect. So I'm just not going to learn it. And so that's out the window. I'm not going to learn Vietnamese. So my only, you know, next step, my brother actually went to a summer camp for learning Japanese.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. Yeah.
I remember, yeah, the Japanese, yeah.
Yeah. So he kind of got into some of that, you know, the Japanese side of things. And I'm like, yeah, but Japanese is so removed from Vietnam physically as far as the land masses. You know, I'm like, Japanese is so removed. China's right there. If I learn Chinese, at least it's closer. You know, I didn't know anything. Like, culturally, like, I didn't really understand.
At the time.
Yeah, at the time. So we're talking about a young kid, like, in his teens and preteens, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I'm going to learn anything that will get me started on the path to maybe learning Vietnamese, I should learn Chinese to get some of those tones, get some of those ideas of, you know, how the mouth should move and stuff like that. Now it's super different. I mean, the Vietnamese has 7 or more tones. Mandarin has 4 main tones. So, you know, yeah, I wasn't going to get there, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was doing this all by myself, coming up with my own ideas in my own head. Nobody told me any of this stuff. I just came up, look, I think if I do this, I'll be able to do that better, right? That's all I thought, right? There was no training, nobody holding my hand. I didn't even have anybody to ask. First of all, I didn't ask anybody, but I didn't feel like I had anybody to ask, right? So I was just trying to figure it out by myself. I'm an introvert, by the way, if it probably isn't obvious yet, but I'm an extreme introvert. And so that was my nature, is to try to figure things out by myself rather than reaching out to other people. That's just kind of how I've always been. That's how it is. So that's kind of, I just made stuff up and like, well, this makes sense to me. I guess I'm going to do this. So then, again, fast forward through those early years of grade school, getting into junior high, which for us, I know different people use different terms for different grades.
Yeah.
7th and 8th grade for us it was what we called junior high. I finally went to a public school in junior high. And, you know, I had my first introduction to Hmong people.
Oh.
And so my classmates, and I sat with on the Hmong table at lunch because that's where I felt like I fit in, and everybody there accepted me. And the cool thing about that is I couldn't fit in. There was actually one or two Vietnamese kids in that school in my junior high, but I didn't fit in with them. Again, I didn't speak Vietnamese, and they were also jocks, and I was a nerd, right? And so the Hmong kids, I think they played Magic the Gathering and other things like that. They're nerdy like me. So and they had comic books and stuff. So we kind of got along. Yeah, they were way better at sports than me, but they didn't care. They let me sit at their table anyways. And I think basically because I wasn't Hmong, I wasn't expected to know Hmong, speak Hmong, or know anything about the culture.
Right.
I was able to be accepted without the things that was keeping me away from Vietnamese things. I didn't know the language. My mom, we had some handful of cultural things, but primarily we didn't really, follow a lot of the cultural, I guess, things. We celebrated Vietnamese New Year. That's really about it as far as cultural things. And then, my mom's food was very, what's the term they use nowadays? The mixed
Like a fusion?
yeah, fusion.
Okay.
My mom's cooking was very fusion like using American ingredients to and cooking them in a Vietnamese way, but very, and every once in a while we'll have a Vietnamese dish, but pretty rare. And my mom actually cooked more Korean food than Vietnamese food, I think, growing up.
Oh yeah.
I think yeah, she got recipes and just did it that way. But anyway, getting back to grade school or my school experience. So as far as language goes, I think that was my thing. I was like, well, this is my path, right? I can fit in with Hmong people because the expectations are low, but they still have a base experience with the dominant culture that I share. But I could get away with not knowing language, not knowing some cultural things, and it was okay to learn along the way. It was safe place. So then getting into college, they didn't have Hmong language in college, right? Not at the University of Minnesota in the 90s, or whenever that was. The next best thing was taking Chinese class.
And what's so interesting about that is kind of like full circle, because now that obviously you're when you're in college you're older, but how closely Chinese and Vietnamese are, some words are the same.
Yeah.
I'm not so fluent, but I had another friend who was Vietnamese, and he would say, "Oh, your last name is same as mine." It's like Wong and Huyen or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
So did I get that right?
No, it's close enough.
Yeah. So it's really neat how that worked out, and it's interesting to hear you share how you troubleshooted, and figured it out, like on your own.
That's a great way to put it.
So problem solve.
Yeah.
Now you are the person that you are today. What has changed, and what has stayed the same regarding this topic and regarding your experience?
Yeah. It's a great question. Let's start with something that stays the same. People still ask me where I'm from, or now they sometimes don't say where are you from. They'll be a little more PC about it and say, they always struggle. It's kind of funny to watch them squirm because I kind of know what they're going to ask, even when they open their mouth. But, what's your background, what's your heritage, things like that. But, and the response is still the same. Like I said, basically 95% of the time it's, oh, that's so unique. So, and I've kind of learned that, now that it's happened dozens upon dozens of times, now I can just let that roll off and know that they don't know what response to have. And so they just kind of say something because they genuinely don't know what to say. So I just allow them that space. And I never really, again, as an introvert, I don't respond outwardly so much. And so, but now I just don't take it personally. If I ever did, now I generally don't. It's like, okay, you're not educated. You don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And then, so that's one thing that's kind of been the same. And I think I've had the opportunity to educate myself on some Vietnamese cultural things. So, one of the things also in college, I took a East Asian history class. And, just learning history was helpful, understand the relationship between Japan and China, for instance, and even, they didn't get into Southeast Asia in that class, but I was able to extrapolate a lot, and there were little tidbits here and there. We talked a lot about Filipino immigrants and, the struggle of Filipino immigrants following on the heels of Chinese immigrants into the U.S. And things like that. And again, as being a Vietnamese, I think, the Vietnamese track, it predates the Hmong immigrant experience by several years, maybe a decade, but there's still a lot of similarities. There's the same reason we are refugees, for the same reason. Basically the same reason. I know some people might challenge that, and I don't mean to offend anybody because things happened the way they did, but I think we all agree none of us really had none of us were in control of how Americans were going to treat us. Obviously, these are all things that they don't teach in grade schools. That's a mission that I'm grateful for many people, working for, to have different voices in our history classes in the U.S. But we're still working towards that. I don't think we're there yet. It's a whole different, again, another topic for a podcast probably. But anyway, going back, a lot of this research and things I had to find on my own. And I've done some. I've been able to, extrapolate a lot too. Learning from my Hmong friends. What do you get? What is it like for you? Okay, it's like that for me too, or it's like that in Vietnam, in Vietnamese culture, we do similar things, or we don't do similar things, or whatever. There's, as many differences as there are similarities. So having all of that education behind me helps, and I think just having a mind that's more open. Again, this concept of we're all human. I think that's, it's not an old concept for me. It's in the span of my life, it's a relatively new concept for me. For me, I wanted to find out what did make us different. Why am I not accepted here? Why am I different? I need to learn about Chinese culture. I need to learn about this so I understand the differences. But now I'm more interested in what are the similarities. Where do we merge? Where do we meet in how we live, in our interests and our values? And respecting the differences, of course, but really looking for more of the similarities and where we do meet and things. So I'm not searching these days for identity or for culture. That doesn't mean I won't ever, but at the moment I'm not searching. I feel like a lot of it is through my belief system, as a Christian. It's starting to get to this place where, again, this whole concept, we're all human. There are things where my identity is more in being a Christian than it is being a mixed person trying to make it in this white dominant culture. Again, I can fit in, I can pass when I need to in certain ways, at least emotionally I can pass. I don't know if that even makes sense. I made that up just now. But, emotionally I can pass. I'd be like, well, I understand white culture fairly well. I fit in the sense where I can go with the flow and understand what's supposed to be happening at any given social interaction, right? Things make sense. So I don't have to, I'm not struggling. Okay, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing something I shouldn't be doing? Am I saying the wrong thing? I can play it. I can pass in my own way of dealing with the situations. So I'm comfortable, you know. So I've kind of embraced that instead of shunned it, or instead of being embarrassed by it, or like, because again, going back to I don't. We haven't, this isn't a topic you and I have talked about heavily as far as how that's gone, but I think it's easier for me to get along just because I have, some white white background, where somebody that's full Asian might, again, we're talking about mixed and full, half full, whatever,
I know, right?
right? But somebody who doesn't have like that other culture growing up in their house might have a different experience.
Right.
So in that sense, I'm privileged to have two cultures, more than I should say more than one culture. I don't know if two is really the right way to put it. Like I said, I still had to find a lot of things that were Vietnamese that I didn't get exposure to. But yeah, those differences. I'm kind of just rambling at this point, but yeah, things that are different are some of those things where I've kind of found myself, my ground. I understand history, understand backgrounds, where people are coming from. I also can understand and have grace for people that genuinely, and like, I get it. You don't know what it's like to hang out with somebody that's Asian. Yeah. You don't know what to say. You don't know what you can say, what you can't say. I'll have grace for that. If you're willing to be educated, I'll teach you. If you're not, many people aren't, then that's fine. We'll try our best to get along if we can under those circumstances. But
that's great. That's great. Yeah, no. As you're sharing, I feel the word I was thinking was peace. I feel that you have found a lot of peace with, and maybe it's just part of growing up too. But I didn't mention it, and we can the next time you come back, because you're coming back. Right?
Okay. Right? I guess so. No, I
am. We don't know when, but we'll definitely get you in front of the camera again, sitting down with us. But Josh's faith is huge. It's a big part of who he is, and even when we met, it was a big part, and so it's also an interesting part of being friends is seeing the growth of that, and the changes and the molding and all that. So no, I think that's a great way to conclude the topic. Yeah, I'll just do this. Okay. So at the end of the podcast, I like to do something I call 5 questions.
Okay.
So the first question, and just first thing that pops up. What's your favorite food and why?
Oh, it's actually tough. I default to pho because it's easy to say and most people like it, so they understand. Okay, yeah, I get that. It's not challenging.
It's become a phenomenon now.
It has now, yeah.
What the pho and
oh boy,
pho, I forgot. There's so many.
There is a lot.
So do you have a particular kind, like it's just the
lately I've been just if I have the opportunity, I'll order pho dak bit. That means special, or basically it's everything. So
everything in the kitchen sink.
Yeah, basically. So that'll be my general order. If it's depending on each place, they have different things.
Do you have a favorite restaurant? We give shout outs.
If I had my choice for pho, I would go to Tio Chow, on University Avenue. Okay. But there's lots of good places, so I'm not gonna.
All right, check them all out. Okay, second question: favorite animal and why?
Oh, it's funny. Somebody asked me this recently. I hadn't thought about that question for years, maybe 10 years. I hadn't thought about what my favorite when I was a kid, and I'll just claim it as current as well. It was snow leopard.
Oh.
And for some reason, I guess I've always been drawn to big cats because they're solitary and I'm an introvert. So they tend to be, besides lions, solitary hunters. And so as an introvert, I could identify with that. And I thought that was cool. And I landed on snow leopard because because they are generally found in Asia.
Really?
So
They're called snow leopard?
yeah, snow leopards. So
Awesome.
like African, most leopards would be found on African continent,
Okay.
but yeah, snow
Snow.
leopards can be found on Asian continent.
Cool.
So-
I'm going to look that up. All right. Third one. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh boy, I feel like that's morphed for me so many times. Teleportation.
Okay.
Nightcrawler's always been a favorite of mine,
yeah.
and so I think I will go with teleportation.
Like anywhere.
If I could, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it depends.
One word that describes you.
Oh no, you stumped me.
Always.
I will go with, and at the risk of being pretentious, loyal.
Loyal.
I feel like that's probably the outstanding.
There you go.
Um,
Okay. And then last question is, when this is all said and done, I always get the joke, not the podcast. Okay. When it's all said and done, and you look back on your life, what is the thing you'd like to be remembered for?
Man, that's changed so many times over my life.
You think about this one a lot?
No, I don't. Well, not lately. Not lately.
Okay.
I have in the past, but lately I haven't, and that's why it's hard now. Because I feel like any of my old answers just don't seem to fit anymore. What do I want to be remembered for? I would hope it'd be fun if I could be remembered for genuinely loving people. But chances are that won't be the thing people say. But if I could, that would be great if that was the memory people have.
What do you think they're
Genuine
gonna
love.
say?
I don't know. Somebody who, a troubleshooter. Like you were saying, I'm troubleshooting my own life, my own identity. I was trying to troubleshoot my identity for so many years. And I feel like I'm a fixer, right? I fix so many things, I troubleshoot many things. So I feel like that might be what people go for. That might have been what my, one word should have been, is troubleshooter. But
Oh no.
anyway,
Okay. All right. So before we go, I definitely want to give everyone a chance to get to learn where they can learn more about you, where they can contact you, if you want to be contacted.
all right, I'm an introvert. Don't contact me. No. Let's see.
We gotta make that Instagram blow up, bro.
I know, right? I do have.
One photo.
I have one photo on
And it's
Instagram
me.
right now.
It's me.
And it's of Pete. That Instagram is Daijo Media, DYJO Media. I'm actually in the process of making a website.
That's right.
And as long as somebody who listens to this doesn't steal the URL, I haven't bought it yet. So that's how beginning I am. It will be daijomedia, hopefully.com. Now I've said that out loud, and I have to get it now before before this podcast goes live, so that people don't steal my URL. But
We speaked it into existence. now.
don't go there yet, because there won't be anything for a couple of weeks at least. And then I am on Facebook. If you can find me there, Joshua Dyrud, and
Okay.
that might be.
That's right. You are on there.
Yeah, but if you Facebook message me or try to get me, don't be offended, because I kind of look maybe once a week.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably just didn't see your post if you're trying to get a hold of me there.
There you go. So, Daijo Media. All right, at Daijo Media. Okay. Is there anything else? One thing I was gonna ask is, do you have any? Before we go, do you have any advice for anyone who might be, going through some of the things that you shared today, or even advice towards people, instead of asking the question, where are you from?
Oh, I super appreciate this closing question, but hopefully I can make myself not be over time on my own schedule. So That's a great question. I am somebody who loves to have my experiences um, uh, help somebody else.
Mm.
You know, where I've had trouble, if it can serve to help somebody else on their path get there easier, then I want to be available for that and help that in any way. The problem being, like I said earlier, everybody's path is so
Right.
different. I have some cousins who are mixed like me, Vietnamese and white.
Mhm.
Um, but their path is just different too. Like my sisters and my path, so different. My brother, you know, he
Mm.
chose, not that this is the defining factor, but you know, he chose to learn Japanese when I chose to learn Chinese, right? It's like
Mhm.
we just had different concepts of what we wanted to, our identity should be, or what it would be.
Mhm.
Um, so I think just recognize that everybody's different, but just because we're different doesn't mean we're not the same too.
Mm.
Uh, and finding people that will support you, like I found you, Pete,
Mhm.
and Tusike, and people that supported me in wherever I was at the time,
Mm.
finding where I'm at, finding out who I am and my identity. Um, and that's been super helpful. Finding people that even if they don't share your exact perception or identity, they might have tidbits like you, Pete.
Mhm.
You know, we share so many interests, and it was allowed me to get to know your family and learn more about, you know, Chinese things, um, at least from your family's perspective,
Yeah.
and things like that. And so, and education is great. You know, just learning the history, even if it doesn't help you find identity, knowing the history of why certain people might have issues with different groups of people,
Mm.
helps. At least it doesn't give answers, but it helps to just understand. Um,
Mm.
so that's a little tidbit of advice, but really, you know, if you are one of those people, do try to find me. I'd be willing to talk you through
Mm.
stuff if things seem hard, you don't understand, especially if you're younger, even if you're older. Actually, maybe it's worse if you're older.
Mm.
Um, and then people, what to ask? I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
tough question because you know, the question is there. It's in the back of your head. You want to know,
Hmm.
but um, I think just try to see people as people, where their background is important. Don't get me wrong; everybody's background is valuable and important,
Mhm.
uh, and it makes us different, which is also it makes us unique. But it's important. It's important to it does shape, you know, how we think about things. So understanding that, okay, um, if you're Chinese from China, then you might have a different view of a certain thing than if you're Chinese American,
Mhm.
right? There's a whole, oh boy, we can get into whole many things, so many things.
Oh.
There's so many conflicts between, you know, African immigrants and Black Americans,
Yes.
right? African Americans.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that could be said, but I think seeing people first as
Mm.
human, right, is valuable. And if you can get that and understand that we all are trying to get through this world,
Mm.
we all might have different identities or things that we identify with, but I hope we all identify as human. And I hope that I identify as human with you as well, that you see me that way rather than another way. And again, we didn't even touch on the half and full. I feel, now that's a huge thing too.
Huh.
I skimmed over that,
Okay.
but there's terms. I'll just say it now.
Mm.
Hapa is a term. It's a Hawaiian origin. It originally was thought to mean half,
Mhm.
and for a long time I went by that. I used that as my identifier. I'm Hapa.
Oh.
But after more research, I realized maybe it's not appropriate to use, and people need to do their own research. There isn't a defining right or wrong, I don't think. But I've
Mm.
chosen now to kind of leave that marker,
Mhm.
and let other people use it if they choose to,
Okay.
but not to choose it myself. But yeah, it means half, and I felt like that was a perfect thing, 'cause
Mm.
half. But again, I'd rather be full,
Mm.
you know. I have a good friend who is younger. He's in high school, and he has a great quote that maybe we'll have to post it afterwards. 'Cause I have to find it. I don't have the exact quote,
Please.
but he made a
Yeah.
great quote. His name's Elijah Burns. His mother is black, and his dad is white.
Mm.
And it's just such a great thing about being whole. You know, being, it seems like you're half and half, but you're not. You're one whole person. I have to find that quote. It's so great.
Yeah, please do. I'd love to share.
That's really great. Anyway, what was the last thing? Oh yeah, so that's what I'd say. I don't know if there's a right way to ask the question. What's your heritage? What's your family background? You know, might be something that's okay to say, but I don't lead with that, man. Don't lead with that unless you're genuinely like never gonna see this person again, and you just have to know. First of all, it doesn't matter if you're never gonna see them again. Then their origin doesn't. What does it matter? They're humans and they're trying to live in this world with you. You know, maybe we're at a shopping, you know, at Target or whatever. You know, yeah. Unless you're gonna get to know me, it doesn't matter to you what my background is, right?
Yeah.
But if we're gonna get to know each other, you know, don't lead with that. You know, find me as a whole person first, and then if it comes up or if I haven't answered your question after weeks of knowing me or whatever, then maybe, yeah, okay. So it does, because it does matter where we're from. Like I said, the way we respond to things will be so different if you're, you know, a Chinese immigrant, or if you're, you know, third generation Chinese born, right?
You summarize it, you know, just approach me first as human, and we'll just proceed from there. So I think you know, that's something that we all could learn and have at our tool belt right now, especially right now. You know, how the world, the country, you know, as people put it, is being divided. I'm somebody who knows it, hears it, but does not like to perpetuate that. I like to perpetuate the things that I want to manifest. So like what you've just shared with us today, I'm really glad that we did this. I'm really glad. I think I know the things that you have shared are going to be very helpful. So,
well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you got it. All right, folks. So again, you can catch Josh at Daijo Media. And if you have any other questions, hit him up, and hit him up for some production questions, or if you need some shooting or some audio stuff done, hit him up. Any questions? With that, we'll let you all go. Enjoy your week. Please don't be stressed. As stressed as you think you are, please give yourself a chance to breathe, and spend some time with the people that love you and that admire you and respect you for being who you are, just for who you are. That's it. We'll catch you next week. And as always, remember, you are loved, you are enough, and you are worthy. Blessings to all of you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. And remember, you are loved, you are enough, and you are worthy. Blessings to all of you.